prices are a lot higher than what they used to be when I was there. What I always tell the startup founders is that San Francisco is an excellent example. Like, why should nobody in their right mind start the tech business there unless you already live there, right? Why would you want to pay $3,500 for like a tiny bit of an apartment in this San Francisco city center, where for that amount of money you can have a mansion in Georgia?
So we're here at the Sheraton Grand. It's been invested in with money from the UAE. If you live in the US, you might think Sheraton. I mean, what is this, 1972? But the Sheraton brand has become a very high-level luxury brand in places like China. This is where a lot of the cool kids and some of our high-level friends and colleagues hang out. We're gonna have an amazing lunch with the star from Georgia's Shark Tank.
Hey, Andrew.
Pavle, Rogar.
Yeah, how are you?
Good to see you.
Good seeing you.
So you're like the Kevin O'Leary of Georgia. You are the shark on Shark Tank.
I would prefer Mr. Wonderful Georgian version, but yeah, I was part of the Shark Tank Georgia. Yes.
What brought Shark Tank to Georgia?
Because every country has the entrepreneurs. They're always looking for investment, and they're always hustling and struggling with that. And I think this is a good project that highlights the process of entrepreneurs approaching the investors and the larger public, seeing their thought process, how they approach the problems, how they evaluate the businesses, how they evaluate the founders, and how does the actually real deal making work. So I think every country should have this type of projects.
I met a handful of startup founders 6, 7, 8 years ago, and the goal for all of them was to go to the United States, go to Silicon Valley, get money, come back and build their business. Is that changing? Is there more capital coming directly into Georgia?
I still think that most of the people think that for you to be a successful entrepreneur, especially in the tech field, you have to be in San Francisco or in any tech hubs of the world for that matter. But the biggest gains are coming where you bet against the consensus and you are right. And I think that the reInvent is the good example of betting against the consensus, and we're yet to see whether we're right or wrong. But our thinking is that you'd better start the tech business in Georgia than in San Francisco. And I have multiple strong arguments for that. So number one being that we don't have the big tech in Georgia, meaning that we don't have Amazon, Google, Facebook, Netflix, you name, right? All the big tech that competes for the small pool of talents. Because if you think about what's happening in the big tech cities, is that thousands of the tech recruiters are chasing after engineering talent. And imagine fighting against them to steal the talent from the big tech and try to recruit them in your startup. Good luck with that. It's number one, extremely expensive. And I would say it's even like cost prohibitive to fight the big tech for the talent. And number two, they always offer them the better things, right? They have unlimited amount of money, unlimited amount of resources, and the beautiful offices, and the world cuisine for free, and the movie nights and whatnot. Like, the working for the big tech became like entertainment center, right? You've probably been in a lot of tech offices, and you know how they work. Right? We don't need a lot of super talented engineers. Those people don't feel appreciated here, right? They get paid very little here, even though Georgians think they get paid a lot. For the Georgian standards, the global standards, they are taking probably like 80% cut. And those people currently work for banks and all the boring ass companies, right? And they know that they can do better, but they don't have an alternative of joining like a Google. And that's where we come in and help those people kick off their startups, right? And what the reInvent essentially does is that we're basically front-running the big guys by partnering up with entrepreneurs at a very early stage and try to grow their businesses as fast as possible and internationalize them and fund them and stop them and give them all the resources they need to experiment with their product. And once they become to the level that the big investors are interested, we're already successful.
Talk about entrepreneurship in Georgia. Is there an increasing interest? What has sparked that? Because obviously 30 years ago, there was no entrepreneurship.
Entrepreneurship in Georgia is still in its like infancy. If you take a car from Tbilisi to Batumi, let's say, right, at any part of the west part of Georgia, you have to drive on a highway, right? And you're gonna notice that not a lot of people are driving well on a highway, and that's because when I was growing up, Georgia didn't have the highways.
They're good highways, though.
Well, they are because they recently built, right? And I'm not surprised that we don't know how to be entrepreneurs. First wave of entrepreneurs were like a mafia type of people who survived the dark 90s. Those people were doing business in Georgia in a totally different way than what you're familiar in the western part of the world, right? But more recently, a lot of people got exposed to YouTube, Google, podcasts, you name all these resources, and they realized that instead of me working for a bank, which was a dream job when I was growing up, now I can create something on my own and sell the product overseas without even going there, or without even like there are a lot of entrepreneurs in Georgia that are selling the products in the US market and they've never been to the US, right? These are the opportunities that the new technology gives to the people, and some of them are capitalizing on that, some of them are thinking about that, some of them still think that, oh, the Pavle is like full of shit. So
Your focus is on tech entrepreneurship. Are most of those folks trying to sell their products outside, or are there some tech companies where I'm going to build the best food delivery app, okay, that exists, or I'm going to build something else that may not be that developed here for the local market, or maybe go regional?
well, as controversial as it might seem, that I always advise our startups not to think about the US market first, right? Obviously, it's by far the biggest market, by far the most lucrative, and with full of opportunities, but there are so many problems that can be solved at faster and easier way for the Georgian market and the market around us, right? Even Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Armenia, Turkey, right? You're surrounded with untapped markets, and there are a lot of opportunities. And even if you create the copycats of the unicorns, you're gonna see a lot of success. That's what actually one of the entrepreneurs in Germany did, right? So he was copying the US businesses in Germany, and when they wanted to enter the European market, they already
The
had.
rocket internet model.
Exactly.
So you have Yandex from Russia, Bolt is, I suppose, Estonian. Maybe I'm missing one ride-sharing app. Uber's late to the game. Uber has failed in a lot of markets, Southeast
Yeah.
Asia. They seeded to Grab. They've really been a North American company. Do you think that the rocket internet model works here, or do you think that scrappy entrepreneurs can take more share?
I don't think any model without a lot of modification can work on the Georgian market. Number one, because it's an extremely specific niche market, very atypical customer base. The geolocation and the size matters a lot. And I don't think Uber is gonna succeed in Georgia a lot, right? Because it's more of a like a premium segment ride-sharing app, and the baseline of the Georgian customers are not willing to pay extra to use the premium service, right? And all the ones that are already in the Georgian market are pretty successful, even the Yandex.
You don't think the kind of people that work for Nomad Capitalist, the kind of people that you have, you don't think that they're looking for that premium experience?
We do, but how many of us are there, right? So Georgia
bubble
only
here.
has like 3.7 million people, right? And with the Georgian workforce is like 1.5 million people. And Amazon, just one company, employs more people than the entire workforce of Georgia, right? So that's just a comparison of the scale. And I don't know, you need to invest a lot of money to set up the operations in any country, including Georgia, right? And if Uber's coming here and renting an office, hire super expensive GMs and VPs and all those guys, I don't think there's a lot of opportunity to cover up the cost.
Does that say something about the ease of regulation here? That, hey, it's a small market, we're not going to capture a huge share, but it's easy enough compared to a more burdensome country to set up shop?
It's a lot easier to set up a business here in Georgia than anywhere else I personally know, because we've set up like dozens of businesses over the last 3 years in Georgia. We've never had a problem with that. We are operating multiple businesses in the US, and it's a pain in the back to operate there. You know it better than I do, right? You had so much experience there.
Stressful.
It is. It is. Even taxation is like insanely complicated versus in Georgia, it's like flat tax, everyone.
And you don't pay if you reinvest the money.
Exactly, like Estonian model, right? So we shuffle the money between our startups without getting taxed, right? And we don't have like a wealth tax as Spain does, right? There's a lot of advantages being in Georgia, and Georgia being a very niche market, you can experiment with the products that are targeted to the niche markets. And I'll give you the examples, right? We recently created the Georgian version of Alexa, right? So the voice assistant that helps you on the daily tasks, as well as automate your call centers and does many things for you, right? So does the US need another Alexa? I don't think so. US has like very saturated market. The US companies will never try to solve the problem in the Georgian language because market is so small. But if we become by far the best in Georgia, and then we move to the Uzbekistan, then we move to the Kazakhstan, and then we move to Indian niche languages, right? There are so many niche languages in the world that big players are not just interested to go there.
Because of that scale in the US, it's so easy just to sell to the US, and yet you have, if you put those together, a couple 100 million people you could sell to that have nothing.
The reason I love the blockchain technology is that the starting positions are almost the same, right? So if I try to compete with Germans in auto manufacturing, those guys started that in 1886, right? So many years ago. And I'm not gonna win that game. But if I try to create blockchain-based some weird-ass game, guess what? Like nobody's ahead of me, right? So I'm gonna find the niche, I'm gonna create something, and I'm gonna try to be maybe in the top 20% of the world. Is it possible? Hell yes.
I just think this is a place that has a lot to offer. Even if you don't want to live here, everyone should come and spend a couple of days. I mean, you have some of the best wines in the world that no one's ever heard of. How do we expose more people to that?
Yeah, Georgia has like, I look at the Georgia as a niche product, right? It has its own market, and everyone in the world's been to Paris and Switzerland and all over the Europe and South American countries. And people are looking for more exquisite destinations, and I think Georgia can definitely be one of those. Especially if you enjoy skiing, we've got incredible ski places like Bakhmaro, Svaneti, Gudauri, you know, like a lot of them. And the diversity in such a small country, where you can see the deserts and the glaciers and the sea and everything.
So you're saying you live in the US part of the year, you do business, but you like the lifestyle here.
Oh, absolutely. Like quality of life compared to what you actually spend in Georgia is absurd, right? And especially like after this post-COVID inflation hit, the prices in the US are through the roof. They were never cheap. But when I go back to Miami or Seattle or in the big cities, the prices are a lot higher than what they used to be when I was there. What I always tell the startup founders is that San Francisco is an excellent example. Like, why should nobody in their right mind start the tech business there unless you already live there, right? Why would you want to pay $3,500 for like a tiny bit of an apartment in this San Francisco city center, where for that amount of money you can have a mansion in Georgia? Not that you want the mansion as a startup founder, but your dollar's gonna go a lot far.
Put the money back into your startup.
Exactly. And the amount of money we spend on experiments is absurd. So we are actually 100 to 150 times cheaper to start to run the experiments in Georgia versus in the US. But when we succeed, the result-wise, we're not gonna be 100 times smaller than the US-based startups, right? And this is the asymmetry that I'm placing all my bets on. And I put the money where my mouth is, right? So I invested all the money I saved up during my US working days. And our company's been growing crazy fast. So we currently have the portfolio of 42 tech startups, and multiple of them are striking deals left and right with investors and the customers and whatnot. So imagine creating the voice assistant, like AI-based voice assistant in San Francisco, and integrating your services to the local utility providers, right? That's what we've actually done in Georgia, and I spent less than $200,000. And you would spend $200,000 just paying rent costs in San Francisco over the last 2.5 years, right? And with that amount of money, we kicked up the incredibly interesting business, and we're gonna serve like a vast majority of the Georgian population. When they're gonna take a call to the utility providers, our voice assistant's gonna answer them.
So instead of someone answering the phone,
Yeah.
we're shifting this model.
Yeah, because if you think about the call centers, right, you have the set number of people, which most of the time don't do anything because calls are not coming in because everything's running fine, right? But if you have the power outage or some kind of like water pipe issue, the entire neighborhood is calling them and they are understaffed. So most of the time you're overstaffed, and the critical times you're understaffed, right? And all the people want to know is like, when is my electricity going to come back, or when the water supply is going to continue, right? And those are the type of questions that the AI voice assistant can easily answer.
Is that something that you think the local population is ready for? Things seem really organic here.
Well, people want faster and better and cheaper service. And if we, with our technology, can offer that, they're hell yeah ready, right? Because nobody thought that the taxi drivers would use the application to run around, because they were the least tech-savvy people, right? Look, like everyone's on the app. They've got the multiple applications running their services. Some of them run multiple, like Uber and Lyft, like Yandex and Bolt. They're everywhere.
What are your tips for living like a king in Tbilisi?
Just move your ass over here and enjoy, right? If you have any type of savings and you've been living in any part of the developed world, you're gonna find the same quality of the life with a lot cheaper costs, right? So the housing costs are a lot cheaper, transportation, car insurance. Like, try to insure your car in Florida, right?
Insurance is through the roof there.
Insane, right?
I found it interesting. If you were a foreigner and you came to the airport, maybe they're still doing it, they'd give you a bottle of wine.
Do you know the story how this started?
Tell me.
So when the Russia imposed embargo on the Georgian wine, our exports were 80+% of the exports were going to Russia, right? All this
is in the
winemakers in 2006, if I remember correctly, because I think Saakashvili made some kind of like Damas comment about Putin, and they imposed an embargo on the wine and spirits. And all of a sudden, Georgian winemakers realized that, oh shit, like I cannot sell my wine because it's not high enough quality to sell in Europe, and I can no longer sell it in Russia. The only way to sell your wine was to ship it to Ukraine, and you can only ship so much in Ukraine, right? And they came back to the government saying that you guys got to bail us out, otherwise we're going to start firing people left and right, right? And government didn't have a lot of choice other than buying this wine. And what else they would do? And they started bottling that to give it to the tourists. They loved it. Like, everyone loved it.
Do you think the EU is going to throw a tantrum over some of the geopolitical stuff as of late and impact Georgian businesses?
They absolutely will, because they think that they're losing the influence over Georgia, and that might well be the case, because I grew up in post-Yeltsin Russia, where the Russian was its weakest point in so many centuries, and now they kind of regain the strength and try to regain the influence over the region and over the world as well. And you being like a tiny dot on a map, it's somewhat easy to be influenced by the superpowers, right? Especially where Europe and the Western collective West is getting weaker and weaker in their politics as well as in their decision makings. I think China and Russia are definitely gonna capitalize on that.
Is Georgia ready for the EU?
Oh, 100%, yeah.
You think so?
Hell yeah.
You think the people are ready?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You think the people are ready for all the regulations and all the...
Well, that's another thing, right? As everything in life, we only want the good stuff, but we don't want to comply to the rules. Like, if you tell Georgians to work like Germans...
Right.
I think the desire is so much to be part of the European Union. People are gonna own up the decision and gonna take right steps to move toward the Europe. Georgia is like absolutely modern European country, probably similar level to Serbia, and we try to be like fully European, fully democratic, fully free country.
It's good to talk to you.
Likewise, very interesting chatting
Shark
with you.
Tank. I'm
Shark
out.
Tank. Nice chatting with you.